Welcome in, everyone. Again, I'm happy to see you all. I would like to say thank you for all the people that have been commenting, the discussions we've been having about Delta Force, foreign policy, special operations, the military. We've seen some great success lately that has very little to do with me, that has a lot to do with all the viewers. So I give you all a huge, huge, huge thanks. As always, before we continue today, please subscribe to the channel. Please like this video. Please comment with your thoughts. The more that you like, subscribe, and comment, the more we get to share the stories of American heroes and talk about current events, the news, and what's going on in the special operations community, which is why we're all here. So today's topic is, quite frankly, a fascinating one that I'm very, very, very excited to get into. And it is, what is the future of Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, Tier 1 operations, special operations as a whole, now that Donald Trump has been elected president of the United States? And I think that it's actually going to be a very fascinating situation we watch unfold. We can take a look at what Trump did for his first 4 years as president from 2017 through early 2021. Of course, he got elected in 2016. You get sworn in that upcoming January in that odd year. So Trump, when he was president, actually did a lot of similar stuff in the special operations space that you saw from Barack Obama. Now, you're probably listening to this and you're thinking, well, wait a second. What could Barack Obama and Donald Trump have really had in common? They were both huge fans of using the special operations community, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6. It's really a scalpel instead of going with a big army approach. Well, what do we mean by that? Are there any examples of that? There's actually quite a few examples. You saw the Osama bin Laden raid, obviously is the most famous one from the time that Obama was president, when SEAL Team 6 operators flew into Pakistan to take out Osama bin Laden. You had the Jessica Buchanan rescue operation in Somalia. You had the Captain Phillips rescue mission off the coast of, I believe, Somalia. You had multiple other missions that took place in Africa, the Middle East. Then you saw ISIS started to get ramped up. We then made moves with the special operations community to kind of be that scalpel, that button that you could push. And instead of needing the big army to go in, you could rely on the special operations community to act as a more narrow targeting asset, if you will. I don't know if that's the perfect way to word it, but I believe that's a good way to get the message across. Instead of needing these sprawling big operations, the big army coming in, the big Navy, all that stuff, you were able to accomplish your goals. Less men, less draw, less drag on the system. How did Trump do that? Well, Trump did that very well in Syria, whether it was killing Baghdadi, which was done with, again, a pinprick style precision operation into Syria, whether it was killing Soleimani, which had Delta Force operators on the ground. Maybe we'll do a video about that sometime, when they hit him with a drone strike in Baghdad. Soleimani, of course, was believed to possibly be the second most powerful person in all of Iran, responsible for many American deaths. And quite frankly, the world doesn't miss him whatsoever, and he was a real piece of garbage. So we have this footprint. We have the history. We have what has happened in the past to look at and say, okay, well, what's going to happen now? The wars are kind of winding down. If not, they're completely over in Afghanistan. ISIS has been obliterated. It was destroyed, and there's only remnants kind of hanging along. Assad clung to power in Syria. He's not going anywhere. You do have the Middle East in a state of conflict with Israel, Hezbollah to the north, Hamas to the south, obviously Iran. They've been lobbing stuff back and forth at each other. What I think we're going to see from Delta Force and the special operations community is really a continuation of what you saw during the end of the Obama era, essentially the last 4.5 years of the Obama regime, into when Trump became president, which is, instead of feeling the need that we have to put a ton of boots on the ground, we can use Delta, we can use SEAL Team 6, and we can target highly specialized data, highly specialized information, and we're going to use that to sharpen the scalpel that's then going to launch operations to kill or capture high target individuals, whether it be in Syria, whether it be in Africa, whether it be in Yemen, wherever it might be, whether it be in Libya, whether it be in, quite frankly, the Asian Pacific. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video a little bit too. But for the minute, I want to focus on the Middle East. I think what you're going to see happen is they're going to use Iraq as a staging area, which they've done for a long time. They're going to use Jordan as a staging area, and they're going to have essentially a Delta squadron on rotation at all times in the region. You also could use Qatar or Qatar, depending on how you want to announce it. We have a massive air base there, which we do keep Tier 1 assets at pretty much around the clock. We'll use those as our ability to then launch strikes wherever we want in the Middle East instead of needing to send in the 101st Airborne, the 82nd Airborne. I mean, you could really, in theory, do it without even needing a large number of Army Rangers. Look at the Baghdadi raid, for example. The Baghdadi raid, I believe, had about 30 Delta Force assaulters and a large chunk of Army Rangers, I believe in the ballpark about 60 to 70, that were providing kind of the blocking positions, the security. They were acting as QRF and all that stuff. That's less than 100 guys. That's less than 100 guys to take out the world's most wanted man at the time, and they came in and took care of business like it was nobody's business. They met very, very, very stiff resistance initially, wiped it out. Baghdadi ends up doing what he does. He unalives himself. We get the hell out of there. Mission accomplished. I don't think you're going to need to see a lot of troops being deployed anywhere. I doubt that's going to happen. I would actually be shocked if it does, because that's not in Trump's MO. When Trump was president from 2017 to early 2021, you didn't see large-scale troop deployments anywhere. You saw constant rotations of Tier 1 operators into Syria, into Iraq, into Afghanistan, into the region, and they were hitting targets left and right, especially during the fight against ISIS. When we fought ISIS, the United States military essentially used Delta Force, the 24th STS, SEAL Team 6, but mostly Delta and the 24th STS, and Task Force Orange is the intelligence apparatus, along with the CIA, to build target packages that then Delta could go out and essentially play whack-a-mole with until they got enough guys to end the problem. Combine that with the air power that the 24th STS CCTs would be running from the ground, and the enemy had absolutely no chance whatsoever against American forces. So in that region of the world, I think that's exactly what you're going to continue to see. I think you're going to see them stage from regions like, or countries like Jordan, Qatar, Iraq, maybe some other areas. They could also park an aircraft carrier or a battleship or something like that. And that will serve as a constant ability to reach out and touch bad guys in the region wherever we want. It also will constantly remind Iran that the best operators in the world are in the neighborhood. And if we want to send them in to do recon, if we want to send them into Iran for any reason, that's what we're going to do. And there's not a damn thing they're going to be able to do to stop it. And if anyone thinks the Iranians are going to stop Delta Force or any other Tier 1 operation, if they decide to conduct something inside Iran's borders, you just frankly got another thing coming. Now, I want to pivot a little bit. I want to pivot to Asia. What we see right now is essentially, I don't mean to scare anyone, we see China and we see the United States of America both getting into war footing for war against each other. Most military projections have the war between China and the United States starting no later than early 2027. No later than early 2028. I think the window many believe opens in the summer of 2027. There are some analysts, I can tell you from firsthand experience, that believe that a war with China actually is going to start this upcoming fall, the fall of 2025. What would Delta Force be used in a Trump administration in a potential conflict with China in the South Pacific, in the region as a whole? I think in that situation, you're not going to see Delta conducting operations like you did during the global war on terror, right? They're not going to be running 5 hits a night, one after another, one after another. I think where you would really see what Delta might be able to do in a war against China, especially in the early stages, is actually similar to what Delta Force did in the first Gulf War, where they dropped in deep behind enemy lines, deep behind Saddam Hussein's lines in Iraq, started shaking shit up, knocking shit around, causing Scud missiles to not work. I think you could see Delta go in deep behind Chinese lines and essentially covertly try to play the role of sabotage what's going on. You could see the same thing from the RRC out of the Army Rangers, the Ranger Regimental Reconnaissance Company. You could see, I'm sure, Task Force Orange and the CIA will have people on the ground, but I don't think you're going to see the large-scale 24 guys hitting a compound, stacking up on doors. I think you'd actually see a different tool come out of the Delta Force Tier 1 Army toolbox, and it would be more of a covert, behind-the-enemy lines type thing, because at the end of the day, a war with China is going to have to be conventional. You can't rely on just special forces and special operations and Tier 1 assets to win a war against China. Will they play a huge part in a war against China? They'll be critically important. But at the end of the day, as much as we're all impressed by Delta Force and they're the most badass dudes on the planet when it comes to gunfights, they're not going to be able to take down a Chinese stealth fighter once it's in the air, right? That's not something, to my knowledge, that they have the ability to do from the ground. If they do, more power to them. I see it as very unlikely. What they can do is figure out a way to mess up enough stuff that those stealth fighters for the Chinese, which are complete knockoffs of our planes, are never able to get off the ground to begin with. You could see targeted assassinations. You could see them taking out specific individuals in the Chinese military. But that's kind of where I think that a role would be limited to, because any conflict with China is going to be fought at sea. It's going to be fought in the air. And if those fail, then I guess you could see some kind of ground incursion maybe into China. But I doubt that happens in a potential conflict over Taiwan. And then the last thing we'll say is, let's go back to Mexico, which we covered in the cartel video. You're going to see, I'm telling you right now, folks, write this down. You're going to see Delta Force in some capacity go to war. I truly believe, and I believe the statements from Trump and the people around Trump and the posture that they're taking, you're going to see Delta Force in some capacity start conducting operations against the cartel. What does that look like? It's like we covered. They could stage on the border from the U.S. side of the border, launch into Mexico, take targeted runs at different targets that the cartels have. They could even go to South America if they wanted to, if they felt that was necessary. You have 7 Special Forces group down there. They could also assist in some ways, but the heavy lifting will absolutely be left to the unit, left to CAG, left to Delta, which will team up with their intel apparatus and get the job done. So I think in the Trump administration, what you're going to see in closing, you're going to see very little full-scale war other than if a conflict breaks off with China. You're not going to see U.S. troops flooding the region in the Middle East. You're probably actually going to see fewer there. You're not going to see U.S. troops flooding Africa. They're obviously not going to be flooding Europe, South America. What you're going to see is Delta Force, Task Force Orange, other units in that Tier 1 sphere acting as a scalpel at the tip of the sword, going in covertly without really the public knowing, without even the enemy having an idea what's coming, and kind of carve up the bad guys before they really get an opportunity to do anything. That's how I think Trump's going to use special operations. That's how he used them the first time around to a ton of success. They obliterated ISIS. They fused the air power we had with the with our stuff on the ground. That's how they defeated ISIS. That's just the fact of the matter. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. How do you think Donald Trump is going to use special operations? Let me know. Comment in the video below. Like and subscribe. And please, please, please comment with your thoughts. I want to hear how you think Donald Trump is going to use special operations in his second term as president.